welcome to the second module in our series about playing Association Croquet. I've called this module Getting Started because I'm going to be talking about some of the basic things you need to know in order to come onto the lawn and understand what's going on, and also, very briefly, how you actually physically begin a game. So first of all, why is it called Association Croquet? Well, up till the 1930s, there was only one form of croquet, which is what we now know as Association Croquet. And then golf croquet was invented, and in 1948, in order to differentiate between the two forms of croquet, the Croquet Association decided to call the game that was always known simply as croquet as Association Croquet, rather like association football and rugby football. Perhaps if we called it soccer, we might get a few more people coming to watch our matches. Now, when we did the golf croquet modules, I showed you the golf croquet rules, which is the little blue book published by the CA. We have a similar book for the Association Croquet game, but they're not called rules, they're called laws. And this is simply a function of when these things were invented. This was the late 19th century, golf croquet was the mid-20th century, and the terminology had changed, but they mean exactly the same thing. Now at the moment, we're working from the Red Book, which is the 6th edition of the World Croquet Federation Laws for Association Croquet. And as I speak in 2020, these are being revised to a 7th edition. Now, when we come to demonstrate some of the ways in which we play Association Croquet, I will put on the screen in yellow the existing 6th edition law, and in white the draft law from the 7th edition. Now, in practice, there's virtually no difference between the two. The new draft edition is simply reordering the laws and making them more readable to a modern audience. It's as simple as that. As we said in Module 1, the croquet court layout is basically exactly the same as for golf croquet. We begin at hoop 1, which is the one with the blue top, and then we go round in a clockwise direction through the first 6 hoops. This is hoop 6, and we come through hoop 6 from the direction of the peg, so like that, and then we turn back on ourselves and we go round all the 6 hoops but in an anti-clockwise direction. Now, if you're a golf croquet player, this is hoop 7, but in Association Croquet it's actually known as 1 back, because we've now turned through 180 degrees, and whereas this hoop was hoop 2 and the ball came through in that direction, now we're reversing ourselves and the ball is going back in the opposite direction. So we've run 1 back, and then the next hoop is what was hoop 1, the blue top, which becomes 2 back, and then 3 back, which was hoop 4 over in the far corner, and then 4 back, which was hoop 3 in this corner. Now, those are the terms that have been used for Association Croquet for 150 odd years, and the 7th edition rules are now suggesting that the hoop names be changed to match the golf croquet names. In other words, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've come through 4 back, or hoop 10. We now find ourselves in front of hoop 11, which in Association Croquet is known as penultimate, or penult for short. And having run penult, we find ourselves in front of the final hoop, which is known as rover, which is the one with the red top. And when you reach the red top, you know you're approaching the end. And so we run that. And then we go for the peg, eventually. The 4 sides of the lawn also have names. Here I am on what's called the south boundary, which is the one that is nearest to hoop 1 and hoop 4. Opposite, of course, is the north boundary, which is the one nearest hoops 2 and 3. And down the sides, on the long sides of the lawn, we have the west boundary and the east boundary. And it makes no difference about the actual compass orientation of the lawn. They're all called by this terminology, regardless of how they actually lie in relation to reality. Just as for golf croquet, we have a white line boundary, and you'll remember if you watch that series that the boundary is actually the inside of the white line, and if any part of the ball is apparently touching the inside of the white line, it is out, it is off the lawn. Now if a ball runs off the lawn, it is replaced, but not on the boundary. It's replaced on a virtual boundary orthogonally to where it went off, and you can use your mallet, which is a yard long, and you put the ball a yard from the boundary. So I know that my mallet is 36 inches long, so the centre of the ball goes at the very end of the mallet. And the rules say that when you replace a ball on the boundary line, you should do it with your back to the court. That's to prevent any nudging of the ball either way, perhaps to give yourself a little bit of advantage. Now this virtual boundary, which doesn't actually exist, is known as a yard line, and a ball which is placed on the yard line is known as a yard line ball. Now by magic a yard line is going to appear, just to show you how it looks, as it were, virtually. So here we are, and our ball's on the yard line, and of course this isn't really there, this is an imaginary virtual line, but I'm putting it on the screen just to show you that it does exist. And when we come to the corner, our yard line turns through 90 degrees, and this corner spot is really quite important. So that ball would be, any ball which goes off the lawn in this area here is known as a corner ball. And again, the spot where the two yard lines meet is not actually marked, as indeed the yard line itself is not marked. Now the corners have flags in them. This is corner 1, it has a blue flag, corner 2 is red, corner 3 is black, and corner 4 is yellow. And when you read about Association Croquet or golf croquet in print, the corners are shown in Roman numerals rather than in ordinary numeric script as for the hoops. You'll notice that there are some little white pegs, and these are exactly a yard from the corner flag, and they mark the ends of the yard lines. The pegs mark the ends of the imaginary yard lines, and they should be just touching the edge of the white line, but only just touching. Why do we have them? Well, here is a ball, a blue ball, which is on the corner spot. It's already appeared. Now I've tried to put a ball close to it, and if my ball runs off the lawn there, say, it will come back onto the yard line about there, and I need to be able to see that from a long way away, perhaps 30 or 40 yards away on the other corner of the lawn. On the other hand, if my ball were to leave the lawn there, it would be a corner ball like the blue ball, so it would come back onto the yard line, and at my discretion, if I'm the striker, I can put it on the yard line either there or there and touching the blue ball. So why do we have a yard line? Well, basically it's so that we can operate with a ball that would otherwise be off the court. There is the red ball on the yard line. If it were on the boundary like that, it would be impossible to do anything with it. So by bringing it in 36 inches, we can bring a ball behind it and then rush it, take croquet, whatever we need to do in order to get this ball somewhere else on the court. Let me give you a little example. I'm playing the blue ball and I've managed to take croquet off the yellow and end here ready to rush the red ball down off the court in order to get behind my black ball, which I will then rush back up towards hoop 1. So I rushed the red ball off the court, so it comes back onto the yard line there, and I can now take croquet off that. And what I want to do is to get my striker's ball, the blue, to about here, so that I can rush the black up towards hoop 1. And at the same time I'm going to nudge the red a little bit further into the lawn, because in a few strokes time I'll need to come and pick it up and use it again, and having it that little bit further into the lawn is a big help. So this is quite a simple little shot. Well, I said that was a simple little shot. It was actually trickier than it looked, because if either ball goes off the court in a croquet shot, it's end of turn. So if my blue ball had ended up here, then I would have been in trouble. And fortunately it didn't. I've got a couple of inches to spare. But you've always got to remember this in any croquet shot, large, small, whatever. If either ball goes off the court, it's end of turn. So you must be very, very careful when playing croquet shots where there is that risk of going off. So I'm now going to rush my black ball up towards the hoop. So as before in our previous example, this is quite a simple little drive shot. And now I can just pop the blue through the hoop. Now a croquet game begins from the so-called balk lines, which are at either end of the court. Here we are on the south boundary. There's hoop 1 and hoop 4, and the balk line is the yard line which extends from the corner spot here up as far as my mallet, which is halfway across the court in line with the peg and the 2 hoops in the centre of the court. And I can put my ball, which I'm going to play, anywhere on this yard line from there right down to the mallet, and that is called the A balk. I can do exactly the same at the opposite end of the court, between corner 3 with the black flag and the centre of the court beyond penults there. And when I play my ball, I can play it anywhere into the court. So how do we actually start a game? Well, as with most games, we start by tossing a coin. And for the purposes of the video modules, I'm going to be playing my brother George. He's the one with the hat and the questionable dress sense. And his handicap is higher than mine, so I'm going to toss the coin and he's going to call. So here we go. Heads. George called heads, and it's a tail. So I've won the toss. That means that I have several choices. I can choose to go first or second, or I can choose to play with either the black and blue balls or the red and yellow balls. Now, in most cases, it's advantageous to go first. Forget about the colour of the balls. that's really quite irrelevant, except in one or two cases. And many people get uptight if they don't play with their favourite coloured balls. You should not worry about that. All the balls are the same. The cases where it might make a difference is, first of all, if one of the players has got colour vision deficiency, and he can probably differentiate between red and yellow better than between black and blue. The other case is if you're playing in poor light. If it's evening and darkness is coming on, it's better to play with the black and blue, because the red and yellow, which will be your opponent's balls, are more easily seen in poor light. But other than that, it doesn't make a fig of difference. And generally speaking, it's better to go first, for reasons which we'll see in a moment. So I won the toss. George called heads, and it was a tail. So now I'm going to go first. Which colour balls do you want, George? I'll have red and yellow. My brother chose to go first, so that leaves me with choice of balls. So brother George has opted to go with the red and yellow balls, which leaves me playing with the blue and the black balls. The opening few shots in a game of Association Croquet are rather like the openings in a chess game. Both players are trying to gain a little bit advantage, or not lose anything at least, by their shots. And so it may surprise you to learn that you don't go shooting at the first hoop. The aim is to make a little bit of advantage by putting your two balls together, if you can, and then making it easier to approach the other balls. So in order to get my two balls together, and somewhere where my opponent will think twice about shooting at me, I'm going to put them on the east boundary, just beyond hoop 4. And so I'm going to start at the nearest point I can to the east boundary, which of course is the end of A balk, just there. So my blue ball has gone off the court, so I'm going to pick it up, and it went off there, and I now put it back on the yard line, orthogonal to where it went off. So now it's my turn to play, and I can play with either of my balls, red or yellow. I'm actually going to play with the red one, and I'm going to put my ball on the opposite corner to my brother, on the west boundary. And I'm going to shoot again from the A balk. So my ball went off here, and you have to keep an eye on exactly where the ball went off. And so it comes back onto the yard line here. Now that shot is called a tice, and the aim is to encourage my opponent to play a shot from corner 1 and try and hit it. If he misses, he'll probably end up on the north boundary. Now my brother laid a tice, which is quite a long one. It's nearly halfway down the lawn, and I've not really got my eye in yet. I'm not really warmed up, so I'm going to ignore his tice, and I'm going to put my black ball fairly close to my blue ball. So again, I'm starting at the end of the A balk, and I'm going to put my black ball about 4 or 5 feet from my blue. So my black ball has gone off the lawn, so I put it back on the yard line, and as you can see, my two balls are fairly close together. Now, brother George has several options at this point. He could, if he wishes, take his ball down to the B balk and shoot down the line at my two balls, and if he misses, he'd go off in corner 4. That's not a bad shot. Now my brother would, I think, quite like me to have a go at shooting at his 2 balls down the east boundary, because if I missed, he'd have 3 balls fairly close together. So I'm actually going to shoot at my red ball, which is on the west boundary. I might hit it, I might well miss, and in which case I'll end up on the north boundary, which won't give him too much of an advantage. So again, I'm starting this time on the corner spot. Now I think that peg might be in my swing, so I'm going to pull it out. You can pull pegs out and flags out if they're in your way. Well, unfortunately I missed, but my ball has ended up way over there in corner 2, which is going to make life difficult for my brother. I pulled this peg out, so it has to go back in, and it goes back in a yard from the corner, in that place there. So here's my yellow ball. I just need to check that it's actually on the lawn properly, which it isn't quite. So it needs to go to there, and it's obviously plenty of space there. So that's now legal. So as you saw, my brother shot with his yellow at his red and missed. So it's now blue and black, my turn to play again. Now you see the point of going first, that my 2 balls are within fairly easy croquet distance, and I can start to create a break. So I will play blue at black. So after that croquet, I would now take croquet and go across and pick up my brother's balls and hopefully score a hoop or 2. Now we're going to look at the detail of that in some of the later modules, but for now, thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of learning about the getting started aspects of association croquet.